Welcome to the Relationship Corner, brought to you by Dr. Ted and Dr. Gwen Mooko. Doctors Ted and Gwen have been pastors for over 30 years. Their God-given passion is the ministry of couples. Please subscribe to our channel to keep up to date with their latest uploads. Enjoy!
Hello once again, viewers. This is Ted and Gwen on the Ted and Gwen
Relationship Corner,
also known as
toward
Toward
marital
Marital Bliss.
Yeah.
Today we're going to talk about things that cause disruption and misunderstandings in our communication.
That's right.
And there are many things, isn't it, Annie?
Yes, yes.
Many things. So let us educate ourselves in things that we should be on the lookout for so that our communication flows. To begin with, we're going to start with something that was researched by a couples or relationship psychologist called Dr. John Gottman. Um, Google him up and read what he does, says, and stuff like that. But he's well known for quite some powerful researches concerning couples and relationships. And so he came up with something called the Four Horsemen.
That's right.
The Four Horsemen is something dangerous that if something is not done in a relationship, these four horsemen can actually cause a marriage to crumble. And he calls it the four horsemen because he takes this from the book of Revelations.
Yes.
Those four horses that were bringing in plagues one after the other.
Destruction.
The destruction.
Yeah.
That's where he takes that from. So, honey, what's the first one of the four horsemen? These are very dangerous, and you should get rid of these in your marriage if they are in your marriage. So let's start. And what's the first one?
The first one, but before we get into the first one, I just want to note that if you identify that your marriage is going through any of these four horsemen, it doesn't mean that your marriage is doomed for failure.
Yes.
That's
can
why
be
we are
repaired,
here.
yeah.
It can be repaired. We're getting knowledge around it so that we know how to navigate our marriages so that they get to a healthier place. So the first one is criticism.
Criticism.
It's important to note that criticizing your partner is different from offering, a voice of critique or offering a complaint. Criticism is where one gets into criticizing their spouse in such a way that they leave the spouse feeling demeaned, feeling inadequate.
And it seems to deal more with character more than the problem.
More than, yes.
It's like you're personalizing, attacking your partner.
Attacking your partner. That's where you always use words like you always. But there's an exception. It's not that your spouse always does this. So you use words like you always and you never. So that's really criticizing them and leaving no room for, because they don't always do that, and it's not like they never take out the trash.
You
but,
never take out the trash.
Yeah, so that's criticizing them. Just leaves your spouse at that place where it's they need a lot of repairing. But there are antidotes to that, and you're going to get into that, I suppose.
Right. So the antidote to criticism is what we call a gender startup. For example, one criticism is when a lady says to her husband, "You never listen to me. You never listen to me." So the antidote is what we call a gender startup, and the gender startup is when you talk about yourself and the issue and not your partner. You don't say you don't do that, because once you do that, they become defensive.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody becomes defensive when they're attacked. So instead of saying you never listen to me, the better way, what you call a soft startup, is you say, I feel in this marriage I'm not being heard.
That's right.
Make it about you. I feel I'm not being heard. I feel I'm being misunderstood. Instead of, you always misunderstand me.
That's right.
You always misquote me. I feel when we speak, I get misquoted. I feel. So that's the antidote. The next one.
So the next one is contempt. This is when you address your spouse in a way where there's a lot of disrespect. You know, you mock. There's a lot of mockery. You mock them in your language. Sarcasm. We covered it, I think, in one of the previous podcasts. You ridicule them. You demean them. You call them names. Even your body language mimics all that disrespect, with the rolling of the eyes, you know, scoffing, and just doing things where you show your spouse that you don't respect them in any way. So that's contempt.
That's a strong one.
That's a strong one, and it comes from a deep place where maybe that person needs a lot of healing.
So the antidote, it's appreciation.
That's right.
Build a culture of appreciation. Appreciate your spouse. That's the very opposite. Instead of having contempt of your spouse, have appreciation. Start to think about those things that got you together. Why are you married to that to that spouse? You know, there were other people you could have been married to. Why did you get attracted into this one in the first instances, and stuff like that? Not all things that we do are bad. So appreciate the good things. You know, build a culture of appreciation. Remind yourself of your spouse or partner's good qualities.
That's
so.
Right.
You then move from contempt into appreciation.
That's
the next
right.
one.
So these are not in any particular order, if I may just note, because the next one is defensiveness. And usually you find if somebody is married to somebody who's always criticizing them, the first one, criticism, you find that it puts your spouse at a place where they are ready to defend themselves. Defensiveness, you cannot get a word through somebody who has already put up this wall, and you cannot break across that wall. So what's the antidote to defensiveness then?
Defensiveness, one thing about defensiveness, the person becomes victimizing themselves, you know.
That's right.
To everything, they're now, you know, warding off anything, even when some of the critique is constructive, but because they're now in that mode.
Defensive mode.
So the antidote is simple. Take responsibility. Don't always defend yourself. When you're wrong, you're wrong. You know, defending yourself when you're wrong does not make it good. You're still wrong. You may defend yourself until the cows come home, but you are still wrong. So just take responsibility and move on. You accept your partner's perception of what they think that you have done wrong, and take responsibility, offer an apology, and move on. Yeah.
It's really difficult, isn't it, Annie, to resolve anything with someone who is defensive.
Oh yeah.
To break that wall down, it's
you know, the first
a lot
thing,
of work.
one thing I've actually realized with the defensiveness is that even when you are asking a simple, innocent question, when somebody is always defensive, they quickly think that you're asking this question because of A, B, C. They already have got the ducks lined up in a negative way. This is why you're asking because of this, or, you know, well.
Would you say that defensiveness is where somebody is feeling attacked all the time?
All
so
the time.
They feel that they have to defend them. Even
when there's nobody
attacking them.
It's just a mindset sometimes. You know, it's just a negative mindset.
Yeah. So you know what? As we go through these 4 horsemen, you could be maybe ticking and identifying some of the stuff just take note of the antidote. They're a process, it's not an overnight thing. It's a process that you have to go through to make a conscious decision to say, you know what, I'm going to develop a culture of appreciation. I'm going to use a language that does not ridicule or belittle or mock my spouse, and I will make an effort to not be defensive, but to listen more to my spouse. And the last one, I always laugh when we get to the last one because I was the queen of this one.
Okay, but it's all.
I will admit to that, but thank God
What
for,
under the bridge?
yes, for, change. And this shows that a human being is a redeemable creature. If you put in the effort, and by the grace of God, using the word of God, you can actually change. And as you change, you become a better spouse. So what is stonewalling? Stonewalling simply means withdrawing and getting to that place where you put yourself, and this is my own language, where you put yourself on mute. You don't want to talk. You don't want to interact with your spouse in any way. If you need to
Tutu
answer,
syndrome.
yeah, you get into your, you curl up into your shell. If you need to answer any questions from your spouse, it's just one word, and it's usually those questions that have to do with survival, So it's, have you picked up the kids? Yes, and you stop there. So stonewalling is really difficult for the spouse that is dealing with somebody who withdraws and gets into this zone where they don't want to talk, they don't want to interact, they withdraw their affection, they withdraw their love, they withdraw any communication with you. It's like they cut off all the communication.
The antidote. Antidote of stonewalling is a very psychological one. Get yourself time
Yes.
to soothe. They call it self-soothing. Take a break. Spend time doing something that you love and that is distracting. Take some time away from the pressure. And if the conversation is going to start again, you start again from a different point.
Yeah.
So those are the four horsemen. But you see,
So-
okay, go.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say it's important to, and I know I'm repeating this, it's important to realize that with these four horsemen, if you may tick one or two. What we usually do with couples is you need to tick the one that you do.
Yeah, not what
Not
the other
what the
person
other
does.
person does.
The one
Because-
that you need to work on yourself.
Yeah, because you cannot change your spouse, but I can decide to change as I identify that, stonewalling, and I'll give an example of stonewalling. It really hurts the other person because they're beginning to wonder, so what is really going on? What have I done? So you put
and
your
the same
spouse.
stonewalling can have a bit of intimidation in it
Of
as
course,
well.
it's a
like
control thing. It's a control thing and intimidation, and
you
yeah,
ask me that,
it's a control.
and I won't speak to you for the next 2 days. So how's
Yeah.
that?
And you don't really get anywhere because you're not going to resolve anything if you're not willing to talk about that which is affecting the relationship, or that which is affecting what has affected you. So I had to learn to express myself in our marriage. I had to learn to say, honey, I think we talked about this earlier on in the episodes just before. I had to learn to say, honey, when you've got a minute, I need, to talk about ABC, and then you'd give me your time. So you really helped me to come out of that stonewalling zone. And also I realized that it's not a good place for my marriage. If I keep doing that, I am hurting my marriage, and more so, I am hurting the person that I love. So
The problem with stonewalling as well is that the other partner, if they're not trained and they don't know, they then use brutal force.
yes.
No, it might not be physical
Physical.
force, but words that eventually
Yeah.
come out of their mouth is to try and force this
Get you.
person into a conversation so it can
Yeah.
be a crushing thing.
Yeah. So with that, viewers, we want to Thank you for listening in. And we just want to say, just keep working at your relationship, keep working at getting it to that next level and that next level. And remember what we've discussed here, it's a process, it's not an overnight. And work on yourself to be a better spouse. Don't try and work on your spouse. Work on yourself to be a better spouse. So thank you very much for tuning into our podcast. Remember, with what we discussed today, we said it's a process where I am working on my life to improve myself so that I become a better spouse.
Yes, so remember the four horsemen. That doesn't mean that they all appear, all four of them at the same time, maybe one by one or whatever, but please, let's work on them. Until next time,
Thank
cheers.
you.
Thank you for listening to Relationships Corner, brought to you by Dr. Ted and Dr. Gwen Mooko. Please subscribe to our channel to keep up to date with our latest uploads. Until our next episode, keep the fire burning and the love flowing.